we talked about AEW briefly there. The big news that came out of them WrestleMania weekend is that this week on Dynamite, it's going to go down the night that we record this year, so you will have heard this at this point already. But they are airing the all-in videotape of the incident involving CM Punk. Very surprising promotional tactic. Tony Khan did say that it will also serve as storyline. So I have my thoughts on where that may end up going. But the idea of running what is a pretty shocking piece of video here, Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
It's intriguing. It's very unlike AEW to do this, but I'm not opposed to it because I am someone who says more than anyone, wrestling is entertainment when it's all said and done. And like pro wrestling isn't primarily about pro wrestling. It's about entertainment, and it's about following different characters in their journey and their story arc and being invested in them. That's, I say that all the time. I'm okay with them doing it. Like, I'm not opposed to it. I think it's going to be really interesting to how they follow up to this, because I think it could be something that is beneficial to AEW. And if they do it and there's a lack of follow-up with how they do it, or if they do it in a way that seems untruthful, it could backfire. It could be detrimental. So I'm really curious to see how the whole presentation happens, how it goes down. And I also, in the big scheme of things, in reality, I feel like if you were going to pull the trigger on this, I would have rather have been pulled months ago when this was a lot more current, and relevant to day-to-day situations. I think out of this, you're probably going to get Jungle Boy back, which I think is a good thing. I think Jungle Boy shouldn't have been punished as hard as he was. I understand he was at fault too, because he started, this thing, and he made that snide comment, but it started before that. And these guys had a little bit of an issue, which should have been squashed from the beginning. It should have never been allowed to get to this point. So it is what it is. But I'm hoping that Jungle Boy Jack Perry ends up being back. He ends up being a heel, and you put him with the Young Bucks. I think that's a winning combo.
Yeah, I agree that this is probably where it's headed, especially with the Bucks looking into the camera and talking about the scapegoat as they were making their entrance last week. So probably the route. The funniest part about it, and I don't say this for better or for worse, it's just, it is what it is. This is the most Bischoffian thing that Tony Khan could do, is in airing this tape. Like, if this was 1997, and I know Eric blasted it on his podcast this week, saying he would never do it. That's horseshit. Eric would
that is, and I agree with you on that. This is totally up Eric Bischoff's alley. He would totally do this.
If this was 1997, Eric would have had that videotape with the "What Would You Do" theme song playing underneath it, like that. This would have happened 100%. So it's a little ironic in that sense, but you can't say it hasn't drummed up interest, right? It certainly has.
I mean, there is totally going to be interest in it, and I know they're looking to pop ratings. They feel like their maybe numbers have been stagnant or whatever, and I'm here for this. Like, especially if Tony Khan pushes for more controversy, trying to build attention because of a story he's telling or something that seems controversial. I'm here for that. I think that's important in pro wrestling. Pro wrestling is not just pro wrestling. You have to do things outside the box, and the longer AEW is in existence, then the more you're going to have to do that, I think.
As long as it ends up serving a storyline and it's not just being vindictive for the sake of being vindictive, I think it will end up being fine.
Yes.
It is weird that you're kind of building a match that you can't present.
Well, I think it depends on the presentation. If it highlights and focuses more on Jack Perry, and you have the Bucks talking about how Jack Perry shouldn't be a scapegoat, how he shouldn't have been exiled. And I don't think he ever should have been exiled from all that at the end of the day. I mean, you have to go back in time when you look at the CM Punk experience. And when you go back to All Out, I mean, when he started speaking at the Scrum, it had to be stopped right there. If you stop things right there, then we don't get a lot of these events that transpire.
None of this happens.
None of this happens.
Yeah.
I really believe Jack shouldn't have been exiled as he was, and you can't take out all the blame on him. Is he at fault? Of course, sure, they're both at fault to a degree, right? But it's one of those things. I feel like his punishment outweighed the crime. That's what I believe when it comes to that. And I think Jack Perry is a big asset to AEW, and I'll be happy to have him back. That's my opinion. That's
all I can say is if they're going to air this video, and for when they fired Punk, for them to put it out as strongly worded as they did, and for Tony to go out there and you know how protected Tony is with legalities and stuff like that, how cautious he is. For him to go out there and say what he did publicly, they must feel like the video is pretty damning on Punk to and in their court of public opinion to be able to air it. So I again, like, I get what you're saying, but regardless, it's still going to drop seeds of, oh, what would happen in a CM Punk Jack Perry match or a CM Punk Young Bucks match. And that's just not a match you're ever going to be able to deliver, ever. It's never going to happen.
I am with you on that. That's why I think the important pivot from this is that you are building a faction and a bond between the Young Bucks and Jack Perry, and it just happened because of the common factor of CM Punk. I think that is what we have to get out of this. And you are right in what you're saying. You're absolutely right. But the fact that they are going to generate interest, it's very important if they generate interest and then they put on some stuff that follows, that continues to keep that interest. You know what I mean? Like these larger than life stories, that is what makes pro wrestling. That is what grows your audience. And I'm here for it. I want AEW to start doing more things like this that are outside the parameters of just pro wrestling and having great pro wrestling matches, because I think having 5-star matches isn't going to be the thing that's going to grow your product. I think that is good if you have a feud and a rivalry and you blow it off in a great match or whatever. That's awesome because you get that good payoff. But at the end of the day, it's about these characters. It's about these journeys. They did that first hour of Raw this week, and there were no commercials. And I mean, for 47 minutes, it was promos. You know, they came out, Hunter, they did the video on Cody promo, Cody, Rock, and it was in the 3 millions that whole time. I mean, there was entrance there, and it's just because this is a crazy deal. You have The Rock, the biggest star in Hollywood, and he's back, and you know, he beats Cody, and then Cody finishes the story and wins, and now these people are interacting. They're saying their story is going to start. It was intriguing TV. And once again, it just goes to show, if you have interest in these characters and personas, people love fucking Cody Rhodes now. He is the face of WWE. As a babyface, he is doing an incredible job. People are behind him all the way. And it was just such an emotional and special moment when he won that title. But the fact that he's out there, and he's out there with Hollywood's biggest star, The Rock, who has embraced this heel persona, and you're building something else. I mean, there was interest in that. And it's one of those things that just shows pro wrestling isn't always focused on pro wrestling. It's the events, it's the characters, it's the story, it's the journey they're on, and you want to know what's going to happen next.